Mike, we be rolling?
Yep.
Yeah. All right, folks, we are rolling. By which I mean this is actually on video. So that'll be for the benefit of more people than I expected it to be of the benefit to. So I'll have the people who aren't here watch it, and I'll try and get them to watch it. I don't think everybody knows me. I'm Eric Ferguson. I am the Sheriff Senate District 63. And I want to thank you all for coming today, and I want to thank you all for being willing to convene your precinct. I know that there's a variety of experience levels. Some of you have done this several times before, some of you are brand new at it. And if that's you, I want to assure you that everybody was kind of nervous about running a precinct caucus the first time. By everybody, me, I'm assuming that's true of everybody else. But I want to assure you of a few things. First, your precinct is pretty sure to include people who've been through this a few times before and can help you through it if you run into problems. Also, we've got a script in here, which we call a script because you don't have to use the wording in there, but if you need to read it, it should all be right in there. And also, I wouldn't have either asked you to do this or accepted your offer to do it if I didn't think pretty sure you could do it. So I think you're all going to do really fine. And those of you done it a bunch of times before, yeah, don't worry about it. All right. To start off with the packet, there's an inventory sheet on the front here. And this should have a list of everything that's in your packet except for, there's also a flyer that has a list of all the convention locations. We just didn't get it on the inventory list. We should have one of those too. The little pencil marks here are where we check things off as we stuck them in the packet. But I'm going to ask you to also double check this for yourself. Preferably do this sometime this week. Please don't leave it to the night before the caucus, just in case there's a problem. It gets a little bit harder to resolve things at that point. Okay, so I'm going to open this up this one because Todd is not here today. Hopefully he's watching on video. Hi, Todd. This is why your stuff's going to look like it's been fingered. Oh, anybody got some chocolate I can handle first? All right. So now I'm taking this packet apart. This is the script I was referring to. Now, they say ideally it has everything that you need in here. I can never 100% guarantee it because obviously, we redo the script every year, and probably something I left out or didn't know about, but that's the attempt, right? So rely on this, read through this, and I'm going to actually read through it ahead of the caucuses, so you know everything that's coming up, and you know, maybe more, you not remember everything, but you know where to find it, where to refer to it. So before the caucus, says guidebook on it. Guidebook script is the same thing. If something might be useful, some blanks in here, you can put in your precinct. There's places to write in your number of delegates. They're also obviously on all the different forms. Because you've got delegates for the Senate District and for the county, and those of you in Minneapolis have delegates for Minneapolis. And those are written on the forms, but you can put them in here and just got them in front of you too. You may want to mark that out. If you find that something that's on the inventory list isn't in the packet, please let me know, and somehow, somewhere we'll get that resolved. Okay, so preparing for the caucus, get some office supplies. Some painter's tape is good, some pens are useful, maybe a notebook, a notepad that you can use for scratch paper just in case you run out of forms or something. If you ever have a written ballot, you probably won't, but just in case you can prepare paper, so it's just a very useful thing to have. You want the tape so you can tape up the wall agenda on a wall. You've got some documents in here where it's just one for the precinct, like a list of convention locations. So maybe you tape that down on the sign-in table so nobody walks off with it. Caucus night. Please get there at 6. That gives you time to set up, and it avoids your site coordinator or the other precinct conveners or me from getting into a panic because you're not there. So really try hard to be there at 6. And you need to get your room set up by 6:30 because that's when registration is supposed to open up. And if you don't have every last thing set up, make sure you're ready to go. Registration is 6:30. And the suggested way of setting up the room, have a separate sign-in table and literature table, or maybe make some clear separation of what's a sign-in area and what's lit. And you want to separate our kind of lit, like our fundraiser announcements, from campaign literature. So you want a designated place for campaigns to put their stuff. We have stuff here from Al Frank and Steve Simon that you can take with you as you leave. Other campaigns might be bringing things on caucus night. If you haven't, recruit 1 or 2 people, maybe depending on the size of your precinct, to help you with sign-in, because if I may handle this single-handed for a small precinct, but it's just a lot easier if you've got somebody else to find lost people and explain things when they're signing in if you're stuck talking to somebody already.
What about if we're doing a precinct that's not ours? I mean, I'm not sure I know anyone to recruit in. The first people that get to recruit.
Yeah. Actually, that works. I mean, the caucuses I've been to, that's the way it was done. It was, somebody, would you help out? And pretty much people will. Or if you're in your own caucus, then corral your spouse. It works for me. Yes, I see that, the smiling like that. But yeah, somebody will probably be willing to help you, and if you'll find somebody that's done it before. I mean, I hate to leave it hanging like that, but if you can't find somebody in that precinct, if you want, I can send you like a list of people who attended the caucuses before in that precinct, and you can look to there and see if you recognize somebody. If there's somebody I knew who wanted to be active, I probably would have recruited the precinct chair to do that caucus. So I'll just have to warn you, the odds are I didn't see anybody active or couldn't get anybody, and that's why I had to recruit from outside the precinct.
I'm fine with that first.
I think I'll manage. Okay, sign-in forms. We don't have the pre-printed ones this year. The DFL did print them like 2 days ago. They're sitting in St. Paul, which is unfortunately a bit too late to get them here. And besides, when I've done data entry, I found that almost nobody uses them. They're pretty much all, even if they're listed in those they always use the blank ones. So you've got some blank sign-in forms. You want to spread those out on the sign-in table, have a few pens. Something important. There's a little dotted area over on the right. You might have to just keep an eye out that people don't mark in that area, because that's where you mark down things like who got elected to what. And at the end of the caucus, you do want to make sure that you mark all that stuff, who was elected as a delegate or precinct chair or whatnot. Even though we've got the forms and there's redundancy, there's a lot of redundancy in here because the instructions that are in the script are sometimes on the forms and it might be exactly the same wording. It's just so you've got everything in a couple of spots.
Yep, that looks good.
There you go. So, basic keys, the key's probably clear. SD means Senate District, Dell is Delegate, Alt is Alternate, MPLS is Minneapolis, HC is Hennepin County. Maybe that wasn't clear. And it's a little out of date. It says ASSCCH means Associate Chair. It's now called Vice Chair. It means the same thing.
This is letter nomination.
A letter nomination.
All right, there we go. No, I pushed it again.
And all right. There's a letter. There is a letter nomination.
Right, so this form says name, and then underneath it says sign. I'm assuming they're supposed to print their name and then sign their name.
Right. That gives us 2 shots of reading it. This is the letter nomination reform that refers to. So people who can't actually make it can still participate in the caucus. They're supposed to get this to the convener before the caucus starts, and to drop dead deadlines before we start electing anybody. That's when they've got to get this to you. They might email it to me, and I'll send it to you, and you need to print it out and bring that with you. Or maybe they'll have somebody else take it with them. We'll figure it out. So they might have somebody else deliver the form. It's unlikely somebody's going to want to come in and fill in one of these forms then, but just in case, we give everybody the blank form, so that's what that's for. This is the big-sized wall agenda. It's just a blown-up copy of the smaller one that you got in your packet. You want to put that up somewhere where it's clearly on display.
Is that as you enter the room, or is that inside the room?
Wherever you can find, yeah, wherever you can find, probably inside the room, somewhere pretty clear. It's just going to depend on the layout of your room. And you want to put this up somewhere, maybe on the wall, maybe tape it to the sign-in table. This is the announcement for Heart to Party. That's CD5's fundraiser. And the information about it is here, so when you talk about it, you can just quite pluck it off of the table. Because there's actually a lot more information here than what's on the script. All right, so that's getting things set up ahead of time. You might notice that none of you have a little tick mark next to the governor and senator preference ballots. We're not doing a preference ballot this year. The reason for that is that candidates have to request by a deadline to be included on the ballot, and nobody did. So I thank Senator Frank and Governor Dayton for not getting on there, because I think the preference ballot is just a stupid idea. Okay, that's my editorializing.
So we skip the preference now?
So no preference ballot.
Okay, just cross out.
If at some point people want to do a show of hands about a candidate preference, that's up to the caucus. You know, you can suggest it, somebody else can suggest it, whatever you want to do. We do have an endorsement battle going on for Secretary of State. That's going to contest an endorsement in our district, so I presume if people want to do a straw poll, that's what they want to do. But just make sure they understand, we're not reporting the results anywhere. It's just so that people in that precinct can satisfy their own curiosity about what people are thinking. Okay, back to this. Oh, yes, I should mention this one. Challenge form. You have this available. Probably best not to have it sitting out. You don't want to encourage mischief. But if somebody thinks that somebody else isn't eligible to participate in that caucus because they don't live in that precinct, or they saw them helping a Republican candidate or something before, they can challenge. They have to write out the reason why, and that has to be resolved by the caucus. So the challenger makes their case, the challenged person gets to make their case, and the caucus votes on whether to allow the challenge or not. Unfortunately, this is rare. Yeah, this is the schedule of conventions I was speaking of, so just have that available by the sign-in table, and maybe at some point explain, you might have to go grab it. This information is also in your script. Okay, script. Where did I put the script? Oh, there we go.
Is that also known as the precinct caucus guidebook?
Yes. Maybe next time I'll change the guidebook to script. Doesn't make it clear. All right, let me just check that I got everything here. Oh, the other documents you need to put out. We got some stuff from the DFL. We have the call and the Constitution and the platform. So these are available. People want to refer to them. So I said, put stuff, you need a literature area. This is the literature I'm talking about. I don't think anybody's going to run off with those. Oh, and maps. You maybe have one outside the room, one inside the room. And I told the site coordinators to put up maps by the building entrance. So when people come in, they should see signage and these maps telling them which precinct they need. And then you got this inside the room. Sheila?
Is not, also next to the maps, wouldn't it be a good idea to have your sign up that says, in our precinct, we vote at such and such location, which may also serve as a reminder to people of, gee, if I don't vote at this location, maybe I don't caucus here.
Could be. I don't know how much the polling places get moved around. And I know some precincts is talking about moving polling places.
I think the
so
only
I don't
one
want to rely on that maybe.
12 that's going to be any changes is Sibley Park.
That could be too. It's kind of mine.
Is that resolved yet?
No.
No.
As far as I know, so.
That's you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if you know your polling place, go ahead. I don't have that information ready at hand, but if you do, you can put that up. Just make sure it's right, because otherwise it could be confusing people. All right.
Well, if it's not right, I'll just set up the voting at St. Helena's anyway.
Okay.
All the right people will show up, so.
We don't want the right people, we want the correct people.
I'm
tired of right people.
Yes, not left people.
Semantics can make a big difference. You are correct.
Okay,
And that's not to say I would keep them for voting.
no, but well, actually, when we get to it a bit here, they do have to be DFLers. There's a requirement. Okay, it says petition absentee letters, that's the same thing as the nomination forms. The name of the form has, I guess, changed occasionally over the years. You might also hear it referred to as a delegate letter. I just want to stress those because if someone puts in a letter and the convener misses it somehow, that's how you get problems at the credentials table at the convention. People think that they ought to be delegates and they show up and they got the letters, and did they just, so make sure that you keep checking those and it should include those in every election. If you run into a problem during the caucus, and you don't know how to resolve this, my cell phone number is here. Please do call the cell phone because I might not be at home to answer the landline. Because I might be running off somewhere else to try and resolve an emergency. I'm hoping I can do everything over the phone at my computer where I've got my information, but I guess we'll just have to play it by ear. I don't know what's going to come up. That's like, for all the stuff I can't anticipate. If you get a busy signal, the odds are I'm helping somebody else. And Judy has graciously volunteered, you see her, and wave to
Because I am planning to come with an arm of extra supplies for my site and, tell them in advance where to park and which door and all that.
Oh, all right, we are recording. Okay, so ask me a question again, Bob, sorry.
What was mine? Will there be somebody available at each site to help with questions?
I've asked the site coordinators to keep themselves available until convening time. So at 7 o'clock, they're supposed to be able to go to their own precinct caucuses. Odds are you've got experienced people in your caucus who will be able to answer questions. So if you get stuck at that point, I guess you can give me a call. If you have, I honestly don't know how often that happens, that kind of stuff comes up, whatever kind of stuff it is. And like I said, if I'm busy, I'm probably talking to somebody else about their emergency, so give Judy a call.
Well, it's true there are experienced people there, and that's part of the problem. That's kind of a two-edged sword.
Yeah, because they think they know what's going on, they might not.
Yeah, because there were little procedural things that changed, not so much procedure, but there were little things that changed last time. My first convening last time, then when they had convened, and there was a little, I wasn't, but, so they did.
If that's what's going on, just remember, you're the convener, you got elected chair, we'll go over that in a moment. So ultimately, you just give a ruling, and you don't have to convince everybody that you're right, if there's some kind of disagreement about that. You give a ruling. If they want to vote to override the chair, they can bring up a motion if they know the procedure. But that would mean that the majority would have to vote against you to overturn your decision. Okay, one of the things you want to do is you want to have an assistant to help maybe with timekeeping. It depends. I used to do my own because I like we are here. I see a clock, so I'll just say I'm going to see a clock. I'll be timekeeper. But consider that you elect a couple of tellers, and the odds of, we don't have the preference ballot. You're probably not going to have any written ballot for anything, so the tellers, we don't have anything to tell. Marty?
So there isn't going to be a Secretary of State preference ballot?
No.
Okay, so there's none at all?
No, apparently the state was just doing it for the governor and for the open Senate seat. The Senate seat that's up this year, not any of their offices, and nobody wanted to be on the preference ballot.
Thank you.
Like I said, if your caucus wants to do something for Secretary of State, feel free, but it's just your own caucus's thing. Okay, but tellers might be useful in this case. You've got somebody who is assigned or ready to help you with stuff, like if you need another timekeeper, you need another secretary, and so on. Okay, be ready by 6:30. 7 o'clock is convening time. And there's an introduction in here. Like I said, this is something that is purely suggested. If you feel more comfortable reading it than trying to speak, go ahead, because it might not be the most interesting thing for your listeners, but you get through it eventually. There's a section here explaining the challenges again, in a little more detail than I did. And it says up here, skip this part if you can, don't bring up challenges if you don't have to. All right, next thing is the fundraiser announcements. And we've got a couple of them. So everybody's got a packet of these spaghetti dinner flyers. You can start out with them on the literature table, but they don't do, most people won't even see these. So when you get to announcing the spaghetti dinner, make a point of actually handing these things out, getting them to people's hands, because this is how we are going to pay for like everything the Senate district does. I mean, we collect money, for the caucuses, but we're hoping just to cover the cost of caucuses. And we ask for money at the convention, but we're just covering the cost of the convention. This is where we pay for
Sample ballot.
Sample ballot, that's the big thing. Our costs of running door knocks, we put on issue forums, that's how the stuff gets paid for. So it's really important to emphasize that. And also mention the heart of the party. And you got this big flyer here. You can read the information off of here because we've only got one, so people might not have seen that. And CD5 is a separate unit. However, our Senate district is part of CD5, and the ambition here is to take this event, it's a new event this year, and work this up to the point where, as an annual event, work up to the point where it brings enough money that the congressional district will cover the sample ballots. They actually have managed that over CD4 at the annual Bruce Vento dinner. The CD covers the cost of sample ballots. They don't have to ask the Senate districts to kick in. Was there anything else we wanted to say about the heart of the party? Because I guess I'm being brief talking about it. Did you actually want to talk about the event itself?
Well, I know, so every precinct chair will receive tickets that are going to be on sale through caucus night for $20, and I actually have some tickets with me today. But you'll probably just briefly go over the flyer, just tell everybody that it's February 28th, and it's at Aria, downtown Minneapolis. And for now, we have the governor confirmed. So Governor Mark Dayton will be there, and Congressman Ellison will be there. And there will be different performances throughout the night. So like Keith Ellison will be playing guitar while Frank Florenstein is singing Bob Dylan. Some other kind of
So they're going to perform musical show while in politics instead?
Yes. So that's what's going to be happening.
All right. And there's a list of bands here. I have to admit, these names don't mean anything to me, but maybe they do to you. I don't know. Or maybe they will to people there, so I guess you can go ahead and mention that. Oh, it might be worth mentioning, they're $20 in advance after the caucus to go up to $30. So it is possible to pay at the door. And I was the guinea pig a couple nights ago for this new system. You take a little thing, you stick in a phone, and you can have PayPal handle a credit card, and it worked. So I was very trusting there with my credit card. All right, there's a letter here from Ken Martin, the state party chair. That part actually needs to be read. That's not really suggested. Like I said, most of this is suggested.
Can I go back to the heart of the party? The prices are going up after the caucus closes, right?
Right.
So we're going to have tickets to sell at the caucus?
Yeah, I'm trying to find somebody to take these around to our different caucus sites and get some signage and get that figured out.
Okay, that part.
So that's the plan. I'm still working on that right now. I had somebody who had convened before and wanted to do something, so I'm hoping he'll do this. Okay. All right. Check again that everybody's in the right precinct, just in case there's somebody just walked in the door. And this suggests you, yes, it's probably a good idea. Maybe go over the map and remind people where the precinct is, because this is actually, for a lot of people, going to be the first caucus since redistricting, because we had the old districts in 2012. Now, people who didn't come to the 2013 caucuses, which would include everybody in Richfield and Fort Snelling, is coming to the new precincts for the first time. Might still have the old numbers in their heads. I run into that a lot, I can tell you, these last couple of years, trying to get people to stop thinking about the old precincts lines, the old precinct numbers. So I always expect some small number of people to just go to the wrong precinct and think, that's my number though, it's been my number 20 years. It's not anymore. Candidate visits. So you could adopt a rule for how much time you want to give visiting candidates, representatives for candidates.
So we have to decide, is that part of the part of the agenda? Is that listed?
Yep. Oh, it's actually on the agenda. It's in the script here that you want to make a rule about that. I mean, you'll remember it if you haven't done it before, when a candidate walks in asking if they can speak and how much time they have, and you go, oh, right, I need a rule for that. So suggest something. Oh, I'll give you a useful phrase. Anytime you need to steer the caucus in a certain direction, remember this phrase. You've heard me use this plenty of times in central committee meetings. The chair would entertain a motion to...
Yes.
Yes, you heard me do that a lot. It works. You usually get what you want out of that. Okay, under introductions, play it by ear. We got started late today, that's why I didn't have everybody say who they were, otherwise normally I probably would have. I'm trying to get you all as close to 3 as I can, just because it's a nice sunny day and you all want to get outside and play, I'm sure.
Finish shoveling.
Yeah, so play it by ear, whether you have people introduce or whether you got too many people you don't want to do that. If you do, maybe give an example, keep it brief yourself, just say, your name, what part of the precinct you're from, maybe. So like I was, I go, hi, my name is Eric Ferguson, I live over by the VA hospital. Okay, next. Because what will happen is that the introductions will get longer and longer as you go down each row, and you will have somebody you might have somebody who will speak indefinitely. Because it's like the one time in front of an audience, and they don't take a breath. You might just have to somebody say, we really got to move on with that after they're going off like 3 minutes. Just be conscious that could happen and decide how you're going to handle that. All right, you need to read the affirmative action, outreach, DFL information, and platform statements. These parts, they're written here. These 2 actually need to be read. And before electing anybody, you need to do the affirmative action reminder. And that's in here too. So you don't need to go through the whole thing, just read the reminder part before electing precinct chairs and delegates. All right, then we get to the funding of our precinct caucuses. So, I don't know what some of you might have come in since this was discovered. I looked at these purple things and just stuck one in every packet. Didn't even look at this side where Tim Bottom was way on top of things, and I should have thought about this, put the precinct on each one. So you walk out the wrong precinct. It doesn't really matter. The wording here is the same for everybody.
We should write our precinct. If it's wrong, cross it out and write the right one in.
There you go. That will work out. So this is where you beg for money. Remember, we do have costs to put the caucuses on. All this paper costs money to print. We pay for the snacks back there. And we have to rent for the rooms, which is probably the big one. So we do have costs we want to cover. We're not expecting to make money, but it would be really, really nice to not lose any money on it. And people will understand that. So pass the bag around, get as much money out of them as you can. And be sure to mention the political contribution refund. Remember, that just started up last year. A lot of people still don't know about that, even though we keep trying to tell people. So you're going to have to tell them again about the political contribution refund. It's a lot easier for that if they were writing a check instead of putting cash in, so we can tell who donated what. A person can get back $50 for an individual, $100 for a couple. They'll write a check, we know who they are, and we'll give them a receipt, and they'll get that back from the state.
Someone's not asked this question.
And it's you, apparently.
Well, pretend you're me, and I'll write down my answer. I don't have a check with me. Where can I mail it to?
309, sorry.
Please, I don't have Tim's name on the top tip of my tongue like you do apparently. It's got to be written here somewhere.
Tim Bonham, 4309, 30th Avenue South, 55407.
Go ahead and write that down.
06.
It's probably right here somewhere, but I don't know where, so go ahead and
Say it again.
say it one more time.
Tim Bonham, 4309, 30th, sorry.
I think it's on the heart, or the party at the bottom of the sheet, doesn't matter, so I can't refer to that sounds familiar.
They send all those yellow postcards as well.
Oh, right, right.
Signified delegate or alternate, it's on there.
Oh, yeah, so so it is. It's right
Yeah,
here.
it's on, the address is on the
Yeah, maybe that's
postcard.
somewhere.
Agreed.
Also, direct them to our website, SD63DFL.org. We have a big red contribute button there in the left side navigation. And down further, we have a thing where we ask for money and talk about the political contribution refund. So either of those places, they click on the button and they get directed to PayPal. They can stick the money right in our PayPal account. Yes?
Now, in case they ask, this is for state candidates. So that would be like state rep, state senator, any statewide race,
Yes.
And the
Those
state
are the-
DFL party.
and state DFL party.
Or a local party, most important from our point of view
Yeah.
at caucus night. It wouldn't count for Congress or for senator. So basically,
Or
anything,
county commissioner or school board.
Yes.
I think so.
No,
No, it
it is
doesn't.
not school board, it is not county commissioner.
Okay.
It's
But-
state offices only.
It's state.
Minneapolis DFL or Hamilton County DFL.
Yeah, a party unit is just fine. Well, tell them, just donate to us and you don't have to worry about it.
That's right.
Because we want the money. Yeah, there's some list of some of the things that we use the money for. So you got a little script for that too. All right. You need to actually get elected as caucus chair. That's why we use the term convener instead of chair. Typically, they're the same thing. Part of my Marco Rubio impression. So you say you need to open up the floor for nominations for caucus chair. You know, accept the nomination. Probably won't have any other candidates. If you do, then each candidate has to get a little time to say why they want to be chair of the caucus. And you have a vote, probably like, both turn your backs to the group and have a show of hands. Yes.
Here's the difference, both of us apparently are convening in a caucus, not our own. So presumably, the chair should be from that precinct, right?
Well, if we had somebody like that, they probably would have gotten them to be the convener. Unless you're mixing up caucus chair and precinct chair. The caucus chair is just for the precinct votes.
Okay, I am,
I mean, usually they're the same person,
right.
but sometimes they're not. And in your cases, they're not. So remember, that's a good point. Make sure to explain that distinction to the people in attendance.
Well, wait a minute.
They can. I don't know how often that happens, but that's DFL rules, is that the chair for the night has to be elected. Marty?
I've been attending caucuses in this area for over 30 years, and I've never seen that happen. Everybody wants the convener to be the chair.
Yeah, I've never seen it either, but it's part of your rules, we have to have the election.
It's helpful for the convener to explain that you went to the convener training and you'd be happy to do it, entertain a motion, something like that. People understand that you're trained to do it, and they'll want someone who knows what they're doing.
And I guess if you put it that way, you show that you know what you're doing.
But this is separate from when you elect the precinct chair.
Right, the precinct chair election is going to come later.
Yeah, at 7 o'clock, you are no longer the precinct chair.
Okay, that's great.
You are the precinct chair right up until 6:59.
Okay.
And then you're done.
Precinct chair retired.
Don't jump up and down saying, I'm free, I'm free. Especially when you're reelected.
Instead of a regular.
What if you don't want to be reelected?
Don't
You want to
run.
get out of the room fast. Because you're going to get reelected.
All right, also, you need to do the same procedure to elect a secretary, which usually is going to be a matter of accepting a volunteer, and you're basically electing somebody to help you with all the paperwork, like writing down who got elected to what and getting the forms filled out. And a couple of tellers, that's kind of with the presumption you've got a written ballot for something, which you probably won't, but you can either skip that part or maybe elect tellers and they're like the first people that you call on if you need help with something.
Sometimes if the former associate, now vice chair, vice precinct chair is there, you can get them to agree to do that. And they will.
Yeah, whatever works. But you will need help writing stuff down, so you can get yourself somebody to do that stuff.
And you have to elect this,
Like technically, you have to elect the secretary, you have to elect the tellers. In point of view, it comes down to recruiting volunteers.
Yeah, can you just, after you convene, the meeting, can you just tell the people there, I've appointed, Judy as my secretary to take the meetings. Is there anybody else would like to do it? Or can we just?
You have to, that would be fine. You do have to open up for election, but that would be fine.
Okay.
Ms. Martin?
I mean, you can say something like, all in favor of Mary or Joe being the secretary.
Where you have to hear a motion.
All right.
Yeah, okay.
Would you entertain that motion?
Okay, I think you've all been to city, central committee meetings where, like, I recruited somebody to fill an empty spot for precinct chair, and, I would say, we nominate so-and-so to be vice chair one of precinct such and such. Are there any other candidates? There never have been. All in favor of electing by acclamation so-and-so, say aye. We get a unanimous aye, and we're done. That's typically how it goes. So just like you see me corral people into being precinct chairs. I shouldn't say that with some little folks in the room. Okay, you mentioned the election judges. That's something else that gets written on the form. Somebody's going to be an election judge, and we turn that into Richfield or Minneapolis, and these folks get enlisted to be election judges. There's no guarantee somebody will be an election judge because they have to get people from different parties, and there's just gobs of DFLers.
Actual forms for that?
Yeah, it's actually on, let's see.
You can check.
I thought it was on the sign. Yeah, here it is.
Okay.
Will be an election judge. Yep, it's right there on the sign-in form. So make sure that gets recorded. Then you get to the actual election of the precinct chairs and the vice chairs. And again, it's written here, this is where you explain why does that a precinct chair does. One reason I really push trying to fill these spots isn't necessarily the workload, because I know some precinct chairs with no vice chairs still were being overwhelmed. It wasn't just to spread out the workload. I think that these positions are really great for somebody who wants to get started, being involved and active in the party, but you don't have a huge amount of responsibility, you're not expected to know everything yet, so they're great for that. So really push to get these positions filled if you can. Make that pitch. If you've been a precinct chair, explain what you do. I suppose you can first see if you've got, just open up for nominations, you've got candidates, you're set. If you find you don't have enough candidates, say the same sort of things I just said. And if you are the precinct chair, you're recruiting some assistants for yourself. So maybe that's your incentive. There's generic stuff from the stuff in the party about what precinct chairs do. They organize their precinct, whatever the heck that means. I don't know. If I'm reelected as chair, I'm going to be asking precinct chairs to once again make a bunch of phone calls like I did for the last 2 years. But this time, people didn't know that at the last precinct caucuses because I wasn't chair yet. Now we can let people know ahead of time, if they're interested in running, that the likely next chair is going to be asking you to take a list of people who attended today's caucus and call them once in a while when we have stuff going on we want to announce and we need volunteers for things. That is part of the job. If that makes somebody back off, it's actually okay, because I'd rather have an empty spot than have it filled by somebody who's never going to do anything, really. Just make sure that that's laid out, but also emphasize how it's a good way to get started in the party. And the election procedure is the same things. You call for nominations. If you have more candidates than slots, then you have to have your election. You can do something like whoever gets the most votes is precinct chair, second most is vice chair, and third most is vice chair 1, and second most is vice chair 2. We want gender balance. So if you have a female precinct chair, the top male ought to be vice chair 1. The way it's likely to work is you're going to have to ask a couple of times to get enough volunteers to do it.
What if I'm re-elected precinct chair and the only other person in the room that wants to be the associate chair or the vice chair is another male? Is that a problem?
No.
Okay.
No.
You just can't elect 2 males, right?
Well, if you've only got males offering to run, you have all males.
But what if,
Never seen it.
what if is a male and a female that wants to be vice chair, but the female says, listen, I don't want to be vice chair one. You only call on me if you absolutely need, is that all right?
Yeah, if someone says, I don't want a position, but I want to help, remember that person, because you can always call on them. Yes, Marty?
Technically, if you elect a male chair, you don't have to have vice chair one be female. Only one of the vice chairs has to be of the opposite gender.
That might be,
Precinct chair.
that might be right.
That's the way the rule reads.
Oh, okay.
And if you only have 2 volunteers, you can only elect 2.
Yeah.
But if you have 5 males volunteering, you can still only elect 2. You cannot elect a second vice chair that is not of the opposite gender. It's in the rules.
I'm not sure, but you know what? It's so unlikely you're going to have excess candidates for precinct chair. Let's not spend a lot of time on it. The odds are you're going to be asking for volunteers, and maybe exactly what you can get. Preference ballot, that's actually cut. I might have other preference ballot references in here because there were just a bunch of them that I might have missed something, but we're not doing the preference ballot this year. But again, at this point, if you want, feel free to have a show of hands where Secretary of State if people want to. All right, 7:30, you can start electing delegates.
All right.
Can we pass a hat to get a new camera?
It is no camera. It holds these tiny 2 gigabyte chips are the most it will hold. Yeah, you get 8.5 minutes for the first file on the chip, you get 4 minutes for the second file on the chip, and then you gotta swap out the chip.
We gotta work out some kind of juggling routine or something to keep our comedy sketch or some, just line up some jokes to tell here and these awkward pauses.
That would be nice if that was an option. When I use this at I did the spaghetti dinner fundraiser, I just go as fast as I can because the speeches are in progress. We all set?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so you've got either 2 or 3 sets of delegates to elect, depending upon whether or not you're in Minneapolis. The biggest set is
Say
the.
that again? I don't live in Minneapolis.
So you've got 2 or 3 sets of delegates, depending upon whether you live in Minneapolis. Everybody's got the Senate district, everybody's got the county, and then if you're in Minneapolis, there's also a city convention you elect delegates for. Also, those folks who live in County Commissioner District 4, which is Peter McLaughlin's district, have a county commissioner convention, and those will be the same people who are elected as delegates to the county. So some folks, a lot of folks.
The convention is not the same thing as the county convention.
No, so that set of delegates has 2 conventions to go to. So yeah, so a lot of you are going to have 4 conventions, 3 sets of delegates.
Is that listed here?
Yep. Yep, that's under section on delegates, it explains all that. And you need to have separate elections for each set of delegates. So in the script, it gives, the information about the conventions is here, because obviously you've got people know the dates of conventions before they run for delegate. Yeah, Bob.
So I'm in Richfield, and if I read this right, I'm going to elect SD63 convention delegates and Hennepin County delegates, and that's it.
That's it.
Okay.
And you're in District 5, so your county delegates go to just a county-wide convention, there's no commissioner convention. So they go light, unless you like conventions. They can be fun, they can be. So the script, there's the explanation of what it is that goes on at these conventions, what we're endorsing for, and other business that goes on there. And a blank to write in how many delegates your precinct has for each of these.
How well, is there something in there that says how many delegates?
Yes. You've got some delegate forms here, reporting forms. We've got some from Minneapolis, and this one's particularly from the county, and it has a number of delegates up here to the right. They're pretty much all laid out the same way. So you want to be aware of that. Let's see, and the...
What if we get nobody that wants to go to these things?
That's not impossible, especially with the tiny precincts that could have. If nobody wants to be a delegate, you don't send any delegates. I don't think that's going to happen, at least for the Senate districts.
Well, I believe last time, we had a sparse enough turnout that everybody that came to caucus was basically a delegate to the SD63 convention.
That's not uncommon.
And only half of them showed up anyway.
That's not uncommon either, especially when we don't have any contest going. So it's going to be the case for a lot of you that your allocated number of delegates is bigger than the number of people sitting in the room willing to be delegates. And when it gets to the election, that makes it really easy. Congratulations, everybody's a delegate.
Everyone's a winner.
Yeah.
But you still can't finish telling.
I'm just curious, because for my precinct for Hennepin County, I only have 2 delegates. Is there a lot of precincts that only have 1 delegate?
I only
Yep.
have one.
I don't have.
There's, I think Marty's has 4, and everybody else has no more than 3. They really cut down the number of
Really
delegates.
slashed it down. So that's where you may have some, watching some caucuses and things.
Possibly, just because of the small number. However, County Attorney Mike Freeman is running unopposed for re-endorsement. Nobody said they want to be endorsed for sheriff. So you actually might not have that much of a contest for county. And for commissioner, Peter McLaughlin is running so far unopposed, so again, you might not have a contest, really, I guess. Play it by ear. You could potentially have a contest for the city because sometimes school board elections get, very seriously contested. So there is that possibility.
Don't we have an open seat now? Is it Montserrat not?
That's right.
He didn't tell, last time we spoke to him, he said he still
No,
hadn't decided.
I just saw it on Star Tribune either today or yesterday. He said he's not running for re-election again.
Oh, fine.
Right?
Yes, we have an open seat then for the.
And that's
District
a lot
5.
of, then that's a lot of 63, is it not?
Yes.
Apparently, that's news to me. Apparently,
I just saw
I kind
it.
of guessed because he seemed really reluctant.
I just saw it on the Star Tribune.
So now you know that we do have an open contest for District 5, and we already had an open contest for District 3, and
2 at large.
we have 2 at large. They're running for re-election, but they're always contested. So there could be a contest for.
I don't think Richard.
Oh, another one, all right. So there are suggestions in here on how to handle these different situations, what to do with. We've got more delegates than delegate candidates. What to do if you've got a few more. So this is a part that I ask you to read through before caucus night, make sure that's clear in your mind. The vast majority of times, it is going to be as simple as who wants to be a delegate is a delegate. If you've got more people who want to be delegates in delegate slots, but not enough to fill all the alternate slots, I found the simplest thing is to ask for volunteers to be alternates. And usually somebody will. The fact is, alternates who go to these conventions, really any of these, are going to be almost sure to get upgraded. It's not guaranteed, but it's pretty rare alternates don't get upgraded. And you probably have some experienced people there who know this and would rather not spend time on an election, so they'll volunteer to be an alternate. That's what I've seen. At least when I convene, that's the way it's always worked. So I'll experienced people go, I'll do the alternate just to get it done with. And I do it myself.
Well, the alternates have to show up for the conventions, correct?
They actually are less likely to show up than the delegates, but we also don't get all the delegates showing up either. And that's why alternates that do show up are pretty much. All right. Okay, if you do need to have an election, there's suggested ways of doing that in here. Like one way, and I think you might have seen this in the video that the state DFL put out. You have people give like 30 seconds on why they want to be a delegate, and everybody has to vote on their slate of delegates. So the top people get to be delegates. After that, they get to be alternates. You can probably rank them in order of the votes that they got. If you end up with an election like that, remember we go through gender balance. So if you've got 10 delegates, you're taking the top 5 males, top 5 females, and same thing for the alternates. The walking sub-caucusing procedures are in the back of the script. It also mentions here, it hasn't happened in this district in this century that we've had walking sub-caucuses at a precinct caucus. So that's why I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, because the odds you're going to run into this are excruciatingly slim.
Well, I remember back in the 70s it happening
I wasn't living in this area then, but I lived in the northern suburbs, and it was happening then.
Well, I mean, the procedures are here because it's happened, so that's why we need them just in case, but it hasn't happened for a really long time. So if you have a contest, you do have to let people know that's an option, and that's where, remember that magic phrase, the chair will entertain a motion to, and then suggest a better election procedure than walking sub-caucuses, which is really the suckiest way of electing people ever invented. Sorry for the editorializing there too. But you do have to mention that as an option if you have an election, and you need to determine then the viability number. So if you've got 40 people present, you've got 10 delegates, it takes 4 people to elect a delegate, that's your viability number. If 4 people want to use walking sub-caucuses, you have to use walking sub-caucuses.
So, would you say that?
Your arithmetic comes out, it's much more likely not to. If we have 42 people and 10 delegates allowed, we need 5 then?
Yes.
Okay. So it's a fraction you round up.
Yeah, but like I said, don't spend a lot of time worrying about this because the odds it's going to come up are incredibly tiny. And if it is, you've got a big caucus where you've got people who've been through walking sub-caucuses a few times. Probably seen it at the conventions. It's a lot worse at the conventions than a precinct caucus, obviously, because of the scale. So remember, it'll be simpler than that. But do go through the procedures so that you have an idea about how that works. All right, and then you've got forms to fill in. You want to do it in 2 places. The sign-in sheets have little boxes for marking who got elected a delegate. We want it there, and we want it.
That's for us to do later.
Or have the secretary do it at the time. I've never worked out a way to get me out of that, out of like an hour of filling in paperwork. So I hate to suggest a procedure because obviously I'm not that good at it. I can just getting some help, having somebody mark the sign-in sheets and get these filled in. And maybe have the people who got elected fill it in so that the information is right. It's probably the simplest way to do it. Like if you elected anybody who wants to be a delegate, just pass this around, people can fill it in, and that gets it right. We definitely want the information in 2 places, otherwise you'll get a call from people doing data entry going, I can't read this handwriting. Who's this person who got elected? So when it gets to the city and the county, the procedures are the same. You've got a small number of delegates for the city, so your odds of a contest are a bit greater. And it looks like we got a lot of contested races, so your odds of a contest for delegate are greater. And the county's really small, much smaller this year, but there's no contests. So if you want a way to winnow out some candidates without having to go through a lot of rigmarole like walking sub-caucuses, reiterate the dates of the convention. And maybe suggest that people who can't go to the convention don't run for delegates. You can cut out a lot of people that way. And in District 4, maybe the thought of there being 2 conventions will discourage people who don't really want to do it. Okay, then you need to elect for the SD63 pre-convention committees. I say elect. The election procedures are the same if you have a contest. Each precinct gets to elect 2 people to each committee. So what I'm going to suggest is tell people all the committees up front, so you'll get like everybody trying to get on the first committee if there's a bunch of people want to do something. And then ask if there's candidates for each one, and the odds are you're going to get 1 or none, honestly. Because there's just not a lot of enthusiasm for going to extra meetings. Imagine that. And again, tell the first meeting, if you do have a contest, this might be a way of getting out of the contest. Tell people the first meeting is Saturday, February 8th, 10 o'clock, and people can't go, maybe won't run for it. We'll see. I mean, some of these committees actually, there's not decision-making, it's work to do, like arrangements, it's mostly doing stuff, getting ready to set up the convention the morning of, maybe the night before, or maybe some work ahead of time. Credentials is mostly technical work. So it's not necessarily a problem if they can't make that meeting on the 8th, but if you're getting more volunteers than you have space for, it's a way to cut them down. So if you get, maybe don't spend a ton of time on it because you don't have to fill each of those slots. And honestly, I think if a committee came up short, we could officially put something on there like they can vote, but anybody can do, if you gotta put up signs, anybody can put up signs, you don't have to get elected. All right, resolutions. You've got some blank forms, and people will probably come in with forms. And those blank forms here somewhere. All right. So we want the resolutions on the forms. It's just the DFL rules, but if you somehow ran out of forms, you do what you gotta do. That's when the extra blank piece of paper matter. And if my experience is typical, you're gonna get like 1 or 2 people use the forms, everybody else is gonna come in with them already filled out. Maybe somebody comes like 5 of the things because they got them all from some organization. That seems to be common.
But they have to be on a special form?
We want them on the form. And you might stress to people, if they haven't written them out yet, that the whereases don't matter. It's only the action clause that goes on to the ballot that we vote on at the Senate District Convention. So there's a suggested procedure in here, and it's probably from law experience. Collect all the resolutions, you read them, and then you want a really orderly process for discussing it. I mean, you have to vote on what the procedure is, and that's where you go. The chair would entertain a motion to have 2 speakers per resolution, 1 minute per speaker. So you read it, maybe let the person who brought the resolution be the first speaker for, see if you got other speakers, and as you've had your debate, have a nice orderly, all in favor, aye, all opposed, nay, and then carefully mark down which resolutions passed, which ones failed, and turn them all in.
So the resolution has to be on a form, and given to me, and I'm the one that reads the resolution. Can I have them read their own resolutions?
I would think so. It's suggested in here not doing so. I'm not sure why. Maybe some people will talk forever. Maybe that might be it. Or I think it's suggested here having tellers do it. It's all good. You know, you do it, have somebody else do it, whatever you want to do.
I do think, I think at one of my caucuses, the people read their own, and it did kind of devolve pretty quickly.
It's probably, that's what I'm saying, it's probably some experience that's in here, because I didn't write that in here. That was, well, I mean, this script has been in use by 63-year-old, 62 for a long time. And so there's stuff I go, I don't know why it's in.
Got it.
All right. All right, so when you get through after you get through the resolutions, that should be all the business that you got. So the last thing is to adjourn. Actually, somebody can move to adjourn at any time. A motion to adjourn is not debatable. Hopefully people won't vote yes if you just got there. But if I just say, I would entertain a motion to adjourn, and everybody can go on their merry way, and you've got some paperwork to do. Please try and get out of the building by 9 o'clock, because after 9 we start paying more rent. I'm thinking entirely of our money and not your convenience. So if you have to come to the post-caucus party where you turn stuff in and finish your paperwork there, that's what it takes to get out by 9 o'clock. Make sure that you've got scraps of paper laying around, that they've gone to the recycling. Make sure the room gets put back the way you found it. Maybe if it's, if you have to rearrange the room, take a photo or something so you can see how the room was arranged, because some of the schools are really particular. Everything goes back exactly as we found it. If you've got leftover candidate literature, just bring it. We'll maybe stick it in our event box and hand it over the summer. Yep.
Is 9 o'clock the time where the caucus absolutely positively has to end?
No.
Is there a time limit at all?
No.
Really?
If you've still got people working on delegate election, or you've got a lot of resolutions, you got to keep going, but if you can be out by 9, it saves us money.
Well, I remember, it seems to me I remember from last time that I had to cut resolutions off because we had to close at a certain time.
Maybe some schools put that rule on. My understanding is we don't have that hard and fast rule. You've got to be out.
Is it park buildings that have time certain?
Park buildings tend to be weird. Park buildings have people turning off the lights on you.
Yeah,
like 10 minutes early.
Well, we were in school.
Oh, okay, that's a concern, because I think you're in the same school. All right.
Which custodians?
Yep, Marty?
Well, hopefully, you'll have someone in the room that's your pal. And you can give them a time in which you want them to move to adjourn.
That's an idea.
So let's say it's 20 to 9, and your friend said, I'd like to move to adjourn this meeting. And it's a second. First of all, people will have already started to defect long before that. You know, the folks that want to stick it out will probably vote to adjourn.
Okay, that's a good idea then, if you think this is going to be a problem. You know, have somebody move to adjourn at a certain time. But you can always say, yeah, it feels weird if people have business and you entertain a motion to adjourn. That's actually a
That's
really
a
good
little
idea.
Have a plant.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Plants are good, apparently.
yeah.
And you can always announce at the beginning that, you know, if you've been elected caucus chair, you can't announce it when you're the convener because you can't promise it. But if you've been elected caucus chair, you say, I really want to have you out of here by 8:30. Now, if people want to keep you there longer, that's their right, but it kind of gives people to think about a time frame.
And
So resolutions can get ridiculous.
And really, most people being polite, not leaving it, they probably want to go.
Yeah.
And it's just a couple of people dragging things on. Probably have run out of business by 8:30.
Yes.
So that's up to you. As you're filling the paperwork, keep an eye on the clock, leave at 9, come to the post-caucus party. I want to special mentions for those of you who've been going to Carol Cummer's house for a lot of years. She's out of town, so don't go to Carol Cummer's house. They're just going to be empty. Come to Jean McGuinness's house. She's our state rep for the B-side. The address is right here, and it's a little web thingy here, that website address. That's a map to show how to get to her house. That's where the post-caucus party is going to be. You're not obligated to stick around all night, schmoozing and snacking and whatnot.
That's a place to drop off your...
That's at least a place to drop off, and we want to make sure that we got everything done while you're still there, so we want to check that the forms got filled in, that things, if we have obvious immediate questions, that we can ask you right then, so we just want to check stuff over quick. Oh, don't want to miss these. These are the convention calls for the Senate District Convention. So you all have enough to equal your number of alternates and delegates. The odds that you're going to use all of these are remarkably slim, quite honestly, with nothing really being contested. So I'm guessing most of you won't even have alternates, and you'll have just a few. But just in case, that's why you got so many cards.
So we give the card to a person that was elected delegate?
Right, or alternate.
Or alternate.
Yep.
Have the card sitting next to the sign-in sheet. Sign your name, no, not the sign, but the delegate sign-in sheet.
Keep these with you, actually, because people will just take one.
No, but the delegate sign, when they come up and sign their name on the delegate sheet.
Oh, I see what you mean, yes.
And put it right there. Take one, sign your name, take one.
That'll work. This says delegate alternate. You could suggest that people circle whichever one they are so that they can remember a little more easily. And these things are made to be mailed, so that's why, remember those letter nominations, you gotta go through those. And we're going to have to just mail these to the people who had a letter nomination, so we'll have a few of these to mail out. All right, and with that, I think we got through everything. Oh, no, we have not, there's a question.
With those letter nominations, which last caucus, because I got reboarded, I was over 9. We never have those nomination things over. But anyway, how do you, if you have enough people that want to be delegates, and yet you still have this pile of self-nominations, how do you work that out?
You gotta vote.
Yeah, they are nominated like anybody else who's delegate. There's actually space in the form they can put in additional information for why they want to be elected. Like I brought mine in case my convener had designated here, and I wrote down why I'm not at the caucus. I say because I'm running around dealing with emergencies. So that's my case for why I'm not there, and why I want to be a delegate. You might put that in, and they have to be considered along with all the other candidates.
And that's a special...
They don't have to be elected, but they have to be considered.
They have to, yes, they don't. It actually didn't happen last year. There was one precinct where they actually had slots, and they rejected a letter of nomination because someone said he wasn't a DFL or a different precinct, and you consider yourself a DFL. Right?
One thing that has come up in the past, and it may come up in your caucus, this happened last year in the city, is that the convener who has elected the chair of the caucus just decided unilaterally that, well, when their delegates were contested enough, they would just add the letter nominations to the list of alternates. And that is not proper. You have to have an election.
It does happen sometimes. Someone's telling me this is what her precinct does, where they do get more candidates than slots, is that they just vote to, if you submitted a letter instead of showing up, you're an alternate, or you're the first one out. And if you do it by vote, you can do that.
Yeah, you're right. I'm just saying, Nate.
Well, I'm convening the caucus, I'm an elected chair, and several, somebody comes in and their neighbor wants to be, they come in with a letter from their neighbor that can't be at the caucus that night, but wants to be elected something, and it's not on this form. Do I have to have Nathan transfer?
No,
or is that letter good enough?
Accept the letter. But if we want the form, there might be a technical rule somewhere that has to be, I'm not sure, but we used to accept just letters. I think this is to make it easier for people to put in letters, so they don't have to guess what they're supposed to say, and they remember all the conventions. Oh, yes, that reminds me.
But I guess what I'm asking is, I don't have to do all the special paper. That letter should be good enough, because if we're electing or not electing these people, it's going to get taken care of at the meeting.
Yes, and remember, even if people don't get elected, turn in all the letters, maybe mark down whether they got elected or not, what they got elected to. It mentions like every kind of convention DFL has, even though we're having just Senate district and city and county, but people might get confused and mark these. If they mark down ward convention, it doesn't mean anything. We're not having a ward convention. This organizing unit convention, organizing unit depends on whether you're metro or non-metro. It means it's the unit that elects delegates to the state convention and the state central committee. So in the metro area, that's a Senate district. Outside the metro area, that's a county. I don't know why that's listed here separately. People might get confused. If they mark down organizing unit convention, they mean Senate district. And it mentions congressional district and state convention. We don't elect those at the precinct caucus. So if they mark that, it doesn't go anywhere. That would be for somebody to put that into the convention. I should get that back. Yep, okay. 2 minutes or so.
3.
3,
I get emails that I can't be at the caucus when I want to be elected. Is it our responsibility to print that email and bring it and treat it as a letter?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, just go ahead and print that out. That's what you, I mean, you can ask somebody.
You should check your email.
You want to get the person to use the letter so that they are aware that they're potentially running for more than one set of delegates, and they can run for precinct chair. And they can make a case for why they want to get elected in case it's contested. But the email, yeah, print it out, that's okay. Stan?
On the schedule of DFL convention, so the CD5 convention isn't listed, and that will be at South High School on May 3rd. So we'll just add that. And then for the state DFL convention, it says Rochester, but it will be in Duluth.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, that's right. Aren't the Republicans meeting at the same time? The same weekend? No, they're meeting in Rochester the same weekend.
I don't have a pen.
Fortunately, there's only one of those. It sits on the sign-in table. No one's taking it with them. So we'll just get the idea out of their heads later on that it's in Rochester.
Now, when you mention the congressional district, are we selecting delegates for that as well?
No. The way the congressional district uses the state delegates. So if you get elected to the state convention from within CD5, then you also go to the CD5 convention. And that's what we're going to do at the Senate district convention. So just remember, we're just electing for Senate districts, county, and city. Yep.
Is there a sample nomination order online?
Not that I know of.
CD5 is done.
There's blanks.
May 3rd.
I'm not aware of a sample. That's not necessarily a bad idea.
Well, as precinct chair, what I automatically,
Okay, folks, remember, one at a time. All right, Bob?
as precinct chair, would I automatically be a delegate to the county convention?
No.
So I have to run as a delegate to the county convention.
Yes, the caucus.
What if no one, what if no one wants to go?
Then you're going by yourself, I guess. Then I guess don't look for a
I guess it's a
carpool.
silly question. I'm up there. I'm expected to go that way, right?
You won't be lonely at the convention, there will be other people at the convention.
Yes, that's the way to look at it. No, I mean, if you can't go either, that's all right. I mean, the fact is that the business is endorsing the county attorney who's unopposed, and no one's running for sheriff. And I mean, there's still other stuff to go on. Probably there'll be speakers. I expect the candidates for Secretary of State will be getting every possible convention that they can. Congressman Keith Ellison gets to every convention that he can. We might see the governor and Senator Franken, and even the senator who's not for election that year often gets around, so we might see Senator Klobuchar. So there's chances to see guest speakers.
But if there's no business, no one wants, why have the convention?
Some people like the guest speakers.
Election of officers.
I can't remember if the county does that at the county convention or not.
Well, they might.
They might. So you might be voting in county officers, but probably voting for party officers isn't usually that big a deal, even though it has to get done. Okay, John?
How many Senate districts are there in the congressional district?
67.
No, 67 in the state, and we have 8 congressional districts.
So that's
So that would be,
8 or 9.
yeah, like 8 and 3/8.
Yes.
Judy?
As a side host, I was going to offer to my 6 conveners that if they didn't want to go to the after party, I could take their records. Would you rather that I did not do that so that you have accountability, or?
No, go ahead and check over their stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, but then they don't get snacks.
Yeah.
Don't get snacks, don't get to hang around with you and me and everybody else.
No, but really,
I
but
mean,
since they're-
it is a party. I mean, people are hanging out there, socializing, you know.
Are you collecting the Hennepin County stuff too and
Yes.
forwarding that on?
Yep. So turn in all of it. Yeah, so make sure you turn in all the delegate forms, and there's a report form from the state. Todd, I'm sorry I messed up your stuff. Where's the report form? Okay, yeah, all right, this is an envelope. They put everything in this white envelope. I think all of it, except maybe the city stuff. That's what I'm looking for. So, yeah, you need to record who had the different positions, caucus convener chair, who got elected precinct chair. They need to know about that. Don't worry about the preference ballot results because we don't have any. If you want to write it down just so you tell the world what you did, it's fine. Let's see, and okay, so these are your list for delegates and alternates and pre-convention. Actually, glad you brought that up. So this kind of has probably everything that you're going to need in this one stapled form. So the main caucus information form, the delegates, the alternates for the Senate districts, and the pre-convention committees.
Are those what are labeled here as extra SD delegate?
So, yeah, some of you have. So that's why you want to go through this stuff before the caucus. Please don't wait till like the night before. Please check it like soon. Yeah, and if there's something missing, we got plenty of time to fix it.